So this has been the offseason that just keeps on giving, and today we need to break down comments made by two coaches in the SEC. First and foremost, when Brian Kelly was speaking about the move from Notre Dame to LSU, he had some interesting things to say about Nick Saban that we need to talk about. But we also need to break down Lane Kiffin's comments on NIL, because he talked about Bryce Young and made a statement on there that's sure to grab headlines, but we need to break down what Lane Kiffin's larger point in all of this is. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know, first and foremost, what you're thinking about Brian Kelly's statements, but then also let me know what you're thinking about Lane Kiffin's statements. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a different approach on this, and because of that, I'm really interested in hearing from all of you. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification, because I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and we're on our push to 15,000 subscribers, and I would love to have you a part of this awesome community. But having said all that, let's jump right in, and we're going to start with Brian Kelly's comments, because here recently when Brian Kelly was talking about the move from Notre Dame to LSU, he talked about Nick Saban and how he's really excited about the move to the SEC because he gets to not only go up against Nick Saban, he gets to try and beat Nick Saban. And the other day I went on the CTS Sport Room show with Joey to talk about this. I meant to embed that video in this video. My downloader wasn't working, but what I will do is leave the link in the description. I'm there every Thursday doing a live show. Y'all need to go check it out, but you definitely need to check out this video because Joey and I saw this differently. We had a bit of a back and forth. Joey felt like this was disrespectful. He felt like Brian Kelly is making his entrance into the SEC and he instantly calls out the top dog. Joey felt like there were levels to this, and you need to earn your place before you do that. I looked at it the exact opposite, though. In my opinion, it would have been disrespectful if he came in here and said, oh, I'm coming to the SEC because I want to beat Mike Leach. He named Nick Saban for a reason because these coaches are highly competitive individuals. We always talk about the competitive nature of these athletes. Very true. But these coaches are cut from the same mold. They want to win, and they all want to be the best. But if you want to be the best, you have got to beat the best. And so he goes to the SEC because he knows he's going to be surrounded by top talent, top coaching, but there's also the presence of the greatest coach in college football, Nick Saban. So Brian Kelly talking about wanting to beat Nick Saban, in my opinion, is a term of respect. He's giving Nick Saban the due respect Saban deserves and saying, hey, I want to be the best. I'm a coach. I have a high competitive drive. Nick Saban's here. I want to come here, I want to compete against Nick Saban, and I want to beat Nick Saban. Because I said it before, if you want to be the best, you must beat the best. So Joey and I saw this a little bit differently. And because of that, I'm very interested in hearing from all of you. Do you find this to be disrespectful, or do you see it like I do, in a sense that, look, this is a competitive guy. He knows that he is going to be facing a absolute Goliath in college football now in Nick Saban, but at least he's up for the task. And if you're an LSU fan, that's exactly what you want to hear. The other thing I talked about in all of this is he really doesn't have anything else to say. If we really look into it in the SEC and more specifically at LSU, where Louisiana has such a fertile recruiting grounds, you have to beat Alabama. You have to beat Nick Saban. That's just kind of one of the things in the SEC. If you're at one of these top tier programs, you're on a timeline. Your timeline is only as long as it takes to beat Nick Saban, and if you can't do that, you're probably not going to be in the SEC for very long, and it's an unfortunate reality, but a reality that Brian Kelly probably realizes, and so he can't go up there and say, oh, I'm excited to come to the SEC and play every coach except Nick Saban. He gave Nick Saban his due respect by saying, I want to beat the very best there is, and also he really didn't have anything else to say because the SEC is such a highly competitive league in its own right. So I'm very interested in hearing from all of you on those comments, but the comments I find really intriguing revolve around Lane Kiffin, and I must admit, Lane Kiffin has really made the SEC a lot of fun. The SEC has always been a ton of fun, but he's just added a certain level of intrigue and a certain wrinkle into the whole equation that you can sign me up for. And recently, when he was talking about NIL, he stated that Bryce Young may need to look into the transfer portal so he can really evaluate how much money he's truly worth. And Kiffin even said, look, whether he stays at Alabama or not, just the point of seeing how much money you're worth on the free market market. Now, I know this is going to be a comment that instantly gets people going, stating that the starting quarterback at the University of Alabama should test the transfer portal to see what the open market places on their value. But Lane Kiffin, in my opinion, is making a larger point. He chose Bryce Young for a reason because he knows the fan base of Alabama, he knows Nick Saban, and he knows how absurd that sounds. But the absurdity is absolutely rooted in reality right now. We're seeing with the existence of NIL and the transfer portal, situations such as that are occurring, because I think Kiffin is speaking to the absurd nature and the absurd landscape that the transfer portal and NIL have created in college football, where we're seeing wild things happen on the daily. And he picks Bryce Young because he knows people are going to say, well, that'll never happen, but he's doing it to make a larger point. He's doing it because he knows this is going to rile people up. And that's something Kiffin is great at. Kiffin is great at making comments that rile people up, but if you really wade through them, there's a larger point there. And like I said a few days ago, inflammatory rhetoric has its uses. Inflammatory rhetoric is good for grabbing attention, but can also make it much more difficult to wade through to find the real meat of the point. In this circumstance right here, in my opinion, I think the meat of the point is Lane Kiffin once again saying this isn't a sustainable landscape with the model we have of NIL with the transfer portal, and some regulation needs to be imposed. What that regulation looks like, I'm not necessarily sure, but many coaches have agreed at this point something needs to happen, and it could be simple fixes. I don't think that both of those things need to go away. They just need to be improved upon, because we can absolutely do so. So, whenever we're talking about this offseason, I mean, where do we want to go? There has been intriguing event after intriguing event, and now we're seeing coaches being a little bit bold. And even though I don't think there's anything bold about Brian Kelly's statements, I actually find that to be endearing, and him using that as a way to show Nick Saban respect. Many people will find Lane Kiffin's comments absurd, but personally, I find the greater point to be in the absurdity in his comments. I think he chose Bryce Young and Alabama for a reason, because he knew that would rile people up. He knew that would get people talking, but he also knew it would really drive home and prove the point of this is a real thing in college football. This is actually happening, and it can happen to anybody. And that, I think, is where we need to sit down, take a moment, and reflect on the comments. And regardless of how you feel, understand there may just be a point to be had there. And that's not to say Bryce Young should do it. Bryce Young, me being an Alabama fan, should stay put, because Alabama's quarterback system has been quite good here recently, and they have the pieces to put around him to have Bryce Young maybe repeat as a Heisman favorite, but also be primed for a first-round pick. So he should stay put. Lane Kiffin is just pointing out a much larger issue in college football, or at least something he sees as a much larger issue in college football. But because of that, very interested in hearing from all of you. That's it. See you.